Good evening and welcome to the Number One Buffalo Podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, and tonight you get a double dose of Greg's. Mr. Vorse, how we doing?
Doing fantastic. We just since Aaron's commenting, I'll just make this normal joke I always make. I'm just upping the hair game.
Yeah, well, I will say he's very accepting of the fact that he needed to come home and just shave it, and he looks really good with the shaved head. So to all credit to him for accepting his fate and just making himself look even better with it. But your hair is looking fabulous tonight. I'm excited. It's interesting. We're going to be talking through some of the injury news that's come up, some of the roster machinations of what that may mean or not mean with some of the other pieces. But first, we are back with Patriots week. We are going to be talking about the rematch here. The New England Patriots won the opening matchup between the Bills and the Patriots earlier this season in a very interesting game, 29-25 early in week 7, and now are coming off of 2 wins in 3 weeks. And for a season that many people had simply completely written off and them, just looking to the future, they have found a way to win games in Pittsburgh and in Denver in the last 3 weeks and showing that they are still putting forth their best effort, certainly defensively, with what's going on. And there's no better person to talk about that with than our friend from the Patriots Nation podcast, right over at Pat's Pulpit, and a great follow on Twitter, Mr. Pat Lane. Pat, how we doing?
Gentlemen, how's it going?
Doing well. I'll ask you. I have a lot of practice. Greg is a Raiders fan.
Yep.
I have been a Bills fan my entire life. I have a lot of practice of those go no games where like you can't help it in the moment, but want to root for a win, even though in your mind like I don't really want that. It's been 20 years, man. You haven't had this. You haven't had to deal with this. How have the last couple of weeks been?
So I'm old enough to remember when they sucked. But the thing is that I was also too young at that point to like realize what getting a number 1 draft pick meant, right? So although I remember them being terrible, I don't remember, kind of rooting for the draft pick like we've been doing this year. And the interesting thing about it is that, of course, like you said, we won 2 out of the last 3. If we had lost the last 3, we'd be in the number 1 spot right now because Carolina won a game. And so that, of course, is hard to handle. But at the same time, it's like you can't be mad at them winning, right? Like that's kind of where it comes from. And I also think, too, like Matt and I talked about this on our show before. And my co-host, Matt St. Jean, talked about this on our show, was like, you don't want them to win ugly. Right? Like you don't want them to be like a gross game where they play crappy, but the other team plays worse and they somehow find a way. Like you don't want to see that, right? Like if you get legitimately good performances from your young players, you can live with it, right? And that's what's happened 2 out of the last 3 weeks is like you feel like these young guys are coming on and it's like, all right, it's not great that we're sitting at the number 4 spot. Like I would rather be at number 1, but like at least we're getting good play from some of our younger players and you feel like, all right, at least we're building towards the future.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks, they throw around that word tanking, and that I do think that sometimes front offices strategically can
Denver Broncos
players and you can release players, you can announce that you're strategically sitting your quarterback because you don't want him to get injured and trigger an injury guarantee in his contract, just hypothetically, just pulling that out of thin air.
Right.
But players never tank. Like the NFL is too violent of a game. Like if you're not out there with your full attention at all times, you're gonna you could get seriously hurt. Coaches don't tank. Coaches are just wired to want to win, to make the right decisions in the moment. So I think a lot of times more casual fans get carried away with the idea that like the players or the coaches aren't trying to win every time they step on the field. When I remember Lovie Smith, his going away present of winning the final game of him knowing that he wasn't coming back. Like, hey, congratulations, here you go. Here's a nice win.
Right.
We'll knock you back a couple draft spots.
Well, and the other part of it too is that you mentioned the players. I mean, you talk about the only professional league that doesn't have guaranteed contracts. Like these guys are playing for jobs, even if it's not with the team that they're currently on. It's with a team that they could be on next year, and so there's no way that any player is going to go out there and intentionally lose. It's just never going to happen because they're trying to get paid, right? And so that's 100% the way it goes. And you mentioned the Lovie Smith thing. It worked out for them, right? They ended up with C.J. Stroud, who seems to be the significantly better quarterback than Bryce Young. And so, it is funny to look at. I mean, look, I look at the Patriots last year, and it's funny because there was someone someone quote tweeted it, and I just thought it was hilarious that it was like Christian Gonzalez Stan was like, I'll never forget the Patriots for winning. This is so stupid, blah, blah. And the guy's like, dude, you love Christian Gonzalez? He got taken at 17 overall last year. Like, it's not like if we're drafting at 4, we're still going to get a really good player. Like, it might not be Caleb Williams, but the guy's going to be super talented and going to be able to step in and help out right away. Like, relax.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, do I think and I'm not even a draft person, but does it sound like Williams and May are supposed to be pretty good? Sure. Do we know that Jaden Daniels isn't going to be the best quarterback out of this class? No, like nobody knows. You have no idea. It's a crapshoot anytime it happens. So again, like you said, it is easier if you have your choice of everyone that's there. But ask Frank Reich in Carolina how that went. It's no guarantee of anything that's there.
Look at all the best quarterbacks in the league right now. Who are the best quarterbacks in the league right now?
Josh Allen was the 3rd QB in his draft. Mahomes was the 3rd QB in his draft. I mean, we're talking, that's recent. Those guys aren't 50.
Right. Yeah. So you go back and you just look at it and think about all the guys and you're like, not only that, but a top 5 quarterback has never won or played in that's not true. Has never won a Super Bowl for the team that drafted him. Never.
Stafford was traded, so that eliminates.
Right.
Yep.
For the team that Goff recently played in one. Right, but he's the only recent one that even played in one.
Yeah, I think you'd have to go all the way back to like Manning or something like that to actually get to
Manning's the last one, right? Yeah, and so I think it's in the last like 15 or 20 years or something like that, because Manning, I believe, was the last one. Yeah, yep. So
when you talk about some of the like front office machinations, I think that the move today is a good example of, if you're in a playoff run, do you hold the line and wait for Rhamondre to see if maybe he could come back to play?
Right.
But you have a chance, again, not that I think Marco Wilson is some, superstar, but like, hey, this is a guy that we see as roster caliber. We have a chance to get him. We need to create a roster spot. So you put in the claim and like, hey, we got to make a move here. So there's no sense, Rhamondre is a guy that we see as part of our future. We don't want to risk further injury here in the last 2 games. Let's go ahead and put you on IR, create the roster spot, claim a guy that we think is worth evaluating to see if he can make the roster next year. Let's give this a shot. I think that's a good example where, hey, that's not sacrificing your odds of winning, because obviously it doesn't sound like Rhamondre was going to play this week anyways, even if that was the case. But it's a good example of like, hey, where you can kind of find that balance of looking to the future while still managing the roster now.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting. And now with the Patriots, the Mac Jones experiment didn't work, right? And they pulled the plug, right? And good for them for pulling the plug. And now you get Bailey Zappi in there, and he looks like a decent quarterback. Now to me, is not a guy that's ever going to win you anything, but like, he's playing the offense pretty well. They look decent. They look like a functional NFL offense with him out there.
That first half against Pittsburgh, I had a moment where I was like, wait a minute. Like, is this a thing? Is this going to be a thing?
Right. And, it's true. But then you look around the league and you look at the Josh Dobbs and the Gardner Minshew and the, and you kind of, Tommy DeVito, and you go down the list of these guys that like were really good for a period of time. Bailey Zappi hasn't even played up to the level of those guys, I don't think. And then it's
basically
like,
until film gets out there on it.
Exactly. And so how long can you sustain that for? And I think that, I think it's a situation where it's like, hey, it's good that he's playing well. He could probably be a backup moving forward, but like, this guy can't be our starting quarterback. Now, if you're drafting at 5 or 6 because you beat the Bills or the Jets, and you're drafting at 5 or 6 and you don't love any of the quarterbacks there, well, then fine. You take an offensive tackle or a wide receiver there, or you move back or whatever the case may be, and you roll with Zappi next year and see what happens. Like, you could theoretically do that, but like, you're not winning anything with him at quarterback, in my opinion.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to go down this path, but the scenario of with the Russell Wilson situation, him having that offset language of just setting off that alarm in Belichick's mind of like, wait, I could pay him $1.7 million or whatever it is, and they have to pay the rest of the money. That is a Patriots move that I've seen
100%.
in my mind for the past 25 years. Like, that is just such a stereotypical Patriots move. Like, wait, we get him for the minimum and they have to pay the rest of the money? Well, all right. We'll wait till the next year to see how it goes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, I mean, I don't love Russ, but I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah. Again, I think he is a great example of, like, hey, there's a difference between, like, didn't meet expectations and is actual trash. Like, he still had moments. Like, he still, like, was functional, like, did some things. And so, you know, if you take him in some of the, like, rosters that we see and you put him in instead of Joe Flacco, you put him in instead of Mason Rudolph, you put him into some of those situations, heck, give him Kyle Pitts and Drake London and Bijan Robinson. Like, they might be,
and no Arthur Smith. And no
Arthur Smith. Maybe remove Arthur Smith. Yeah, you might need to remove that from the equation. Let's talk a little bit about the matchup this week. Again, we've already gone through. This is our second matchup with the Patriots. Bills fans are obviously very familiar with the roster and the team, so we're not going to go position group by position group here. But, you know, Rhamondre has been a guy that I was super excited about, you know, from a fantasy standpoint, just the size speed combination of what he's had there. And I won't lie, I thought Zeke was completely cooked. And I just didn't think there was anything left in the tank. When he signed there, I was like, great. Absolutely. That's wonderful. Every snap that Rhamondre Stevenson is not on the field is a plus for us. I'll take it. And you want to know what? The man still got some juice. Good. Like, he still has a little bit left in the tank. I've been pretty impressed. Like, I didn't expect to see this. And obviously, you know, I don't think everything's not the most efficient production we've ever seen, but he's had a bit more than what I expected.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he's been significantly faster than I thought. He's made some really nice catch out of the backfield. He's been a reliable player. He's a guy that doesn't mind getting his nose dirty when it comes to, you know, pass protection. And he runs hard. Like, he's given a lot more than I thought he would. And to me, I felt like anything we got from him would be good. And the guy he is in the locker room, combined with the guy we've seen on the field, I'd love it if he came back again next year. Because, again, you have Rhamondre next year still. You're not going to be relying on him to be a guy, you know, but he can be your second guy, your change of pace guy, your guy that goes in and spells Rhamondre when he needs to. And he's shown that he can do that. And I think having less pressure on him and not having him be able to be the bell cow, and also not having him look over his shoulder like he was at Tony Pollard the last few years, I think has significantly helped him. And I think he's been a great addition for the Patriots.
Well, it's I think also a sneaky 28. Like, his name has been around for so long that you think of him as, like, completely over the hill. And it just shows that, like, hey, he's still a pretty elite athlete that, hey, at 28, 29, he's still got a little bit left in the tank. Guy that was never a breakaway, you know, track star. Always like a hard runner, fantastic blitz pickup, great out of the backfield. Those skills translate in age reasonably well.
He exploded there in that championship with Cardale. And that's how when you know a guy as a freshman, right, they feel like Fournette. They feel way older.
Seriously.
When you were tracking them as 5 stars.
Yeah, you watch them from that. So Adrian Peterson was the same way. Like, you know the name from so far away that it seems like they're in your life forever. So again, from a looking forward standpoint and from an asset standpoint, I think everybody kind of knows what a Devontae Parker is, what a you know, some of the, you know, getting a you know, cup of coffee for Jalen Reagor, but two pieces that intrigued me coming out in the draft and now seeing them. One, it took a little while to see some of the flashes from Tyquan Thornton and seeing that breakaway on the jet sweep almost cracked that one game open. And Demario Douglas, Pop Douglas, has been a guy that just every time I watch just flashes over and over again. Those are two guys that from afar seem like they could be part of, you know, not a 1 or a 2, but could be part of a receiving core going forward. Is there anybody else that I'm missing, or are those kind of the keeper pieces that you see?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, I like KB a lot. Of course, he's hurt on IR now, Kendrick Bourne, but I like him as a kind of a glue guy, as a guy in the locker room. Again, that's a strong personality, good player, works his butt off. Everyone likes him. He's up. He doesn't have a contract next year, so I'd like to see them bring him back. Tyquan is an interesting case because he can't run a route. He can't run a route. It's crazy because you didn't really see that at Baylor, but then again, he wasn't. I guess he was running slants and goes, I guess. some of his route running is like, you got to be kidding me, man. It's brutal. And so that's hard to see. But if you scheme him touches, right? He had like a quick screen that he picked up like 11 yards on like instantly last weekend. And like, just get the ball in his hands. The explosion's obvious. That's it. Get the ball in his hands and let him go to work that way. And like, let him be a gadget guy because he has the speed for it, right? And every now and again, send him on a deep route and just try to throw it to him. Just see what happens. Like, he's not going to be, and like you said, he's not even a number 3, maybe even number 4 receiver, but he's a guy that can go in and give you some speed. Bob Douglas has been awesome this year. Yep. He's one catch away from tying the record in the Belichick era, at least, for catches by a rookie wide receiver. He's got like 44. I think he has 43 and Deion Branch has 44. So, but he's looked good. He had a whip route on Sunday where he was like walking up the field and then he just like faked inside and burst outside. And it was like, I'm like, that's impossible. How do you stop that? Like he went from walking to like 100 miles an hour in like 2 steps. And I was like, that's just not fair. And so he has that burst. He's small, right? And that's why he dropped to the 6th round. But like Tank Dell's small. Now Tank Dell's out for the year because he's, and so like you're gonna face injury with guys like that. The guy over my shoulder right here, Marcus Jones, same type of guy. Explosive, quick, crazy with the ball in his hands, but he's a little guy. And so sometimes those guys are gonna get hurt. You can't rely on them to be number 1 wide receivers, but they're guys that you love to have because they can create separation and get open, and they force the defense to pay attention to them because they have that breakaway ability right away as soon as you get the ball, wherever it is, whether it's short or deep or whatever the case may be. So I'm super excited about Pop Douglas, super excited about him. And Tyquan is a guy that I think we kind of know what he is at this point, but we can use, you can't go wrong with speed, right? Like,
yeah. If you get the right strong arm quarterback, that guy's a wide receiver 4 or 5 once or twice a game to stretch the field.
Yeah, and it sucks he drafted a number 50 overall, and it was a miss and whatever, but he's on the team now. And so it's like use him for what he can do and just get the ball in his hands and then get the hell out of the way,
Greg, what do you got on defense?
Well, yeah, going to the other side of the ball, we're talking about individuals and guys that seem older than they are. I'm a Michigan guy. I can't not ask you about Jabrill Peppers and what he brings to the table. He might be one of those guys that the idea of him in the NFL is way greater than what he's unfortunately been in the NFL. But is that maybe the ultimate weapon for James Cook out of the backfield and spying Josh Allen, is having a Jabrill Peppers?
He's been awesome this year. Peppers has been awesome this year. He's been all over the field. He oh my God, he just hits people so hard. And he like plays this like crazy style of play where he's just flying around. He's going 100 miles an hour all the time, killing people and laying people out and making plays on the ball and doing all sorts of things. And so I think he's been key to this defense. And you look at the defense and you say they've been playing really well. And like they're without Matthew Judon. They're without Christian Gonzalez. They're without Jack Jones. You're on the list of the people that they're missing, and you're like, man, they're without Marcus Jones, without all these different guys, and you're just like, man, they're still holding teams. And look, they're not shutting every team out, but like to have 3 straight games where they give up under 10 points, and they lost all 3 of those games, but like just defensively, it's like, they played so well. And even in the games where it's been close, Russ, ended up scoring a few points. But like, they played really well against Denver on Sunday night, and they played really well 2 weeks ago against Pittsburgh. And again, some of that could be Mitch Trubisky just being terrible, but like, and they beat the Bills, and they shut Josh down, and they confused the hell out of him, made him make a few bad throws. And like, you see some of the plays that they've made, and I love what they're doing. And especially with guys, Miles Bryant's out there playing significant snaps. He's overmatched, but he's just so smart, and they use him correctly. And it's like, it's a lot of fun to watch this defense. And Peppers, I think, is another guy, he's signed for next year, but like, he's another guy that like, you need to keep that guy around long-term. I love the attitude he brings.
When I was researching to talk to you, and then I always do our 5 storylines and 5 keys to victory piece about the Bills, I was stunned and had to look on 3 different websites how many defensive penalties the Patriots have this year and where they rank. They're one of the worst in the league when it comes to defensive specific penalties. That's got to eat away at Belichick. I mean, it's just got to be one of those things
that's been the case.
Yeah, that tears him apart. What do you see as, because obviously Greg and I aren't watching the Pats 17 weeks a year. What do you see? What, like, I'm dumbfounded finding the stat, let alone not being a fan.
You know what? They're physical. They're aggressive. They do. A lot of them aren't mental
so it's not
mistakes.
Dumb.
Right. Some of them are dumb. Some of them are dumb. Trust me. Right. You know, like, but a lot of them aren't dumb penalties. A lot of them, you know, the roughing the passer epidemic this year is just ridiculous. And the Patriots have gotten 5 or 6 of those where you just like, where the hell is that call? Like, what are you doing?
That's a tackle, sir.
Right. And it's like, and they got one, Jelani Tavai got one. They got fined for it. I think it was a penalty in the game too. And it was just like, he didn't even do anything. He hit the guy in the back and they called it. It's just like, you know, some of those things are just, it's just stupid. And they're trying to litigate the game. And it just, I don't understand what they're even trying to accomplish because it's not doing anything. And so that part has been frustrating. I think some of it has been, you know, of course there's been holding, and part of it is that you're on your 3rd, 4th, 5th corner out there and they just can't compete with some of these guys. And so they're holding or they're pass interfering or whatever the case may be. And sometimes those things happen and it sucks and you don't want to see that happen, but it's like, well, better to get a holding penalty than, you know, a 45, 50-yard touchdown pass, right? And so it's not ideal, and certainly you'd like to see less of it, but there hasn't been a ton of mental mistakes. At the beginning of the year, I feel like there was a lot more, and they've cleaned it up a little bit. It still happens, but it's not quite as egregious as it was. I feel like it was really bad at the beginning of the year.
I could tell you, 2 of the team leaders on defense were J.C. Jackson and Jack Jones. So they left with them when they went out the door.
So there you go.
I hope with that standpoint.
And Jack Jones, man, like it's so frustrating because you see the type of player he is, right? I mean, you talk about in his career now, he's played for 2 years. He has a pick six against Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. There's not a lot of guys in the league that can say that, right? But he's just such a moron. He's just so stupid. And the things he does, like taking a loaded gun onto an airplane, then like what ended up getting him, you know, that they like, fine, we'll deal with it. Then he did something else. And then he just didn't show up. Like he didn't show up late for curfew. He just didn't show up. Like it's unbelievable to me that you would do something like that, you know? And so they've given him a million chances and they just say, forget it. Like we can't do this anymore.
You hope that finally connecting with a guy like Antonio Pierce, who just randomly happened to be in his life when he was a child, like maybe that's what he needs to get himself close enough. But it's always hard. You're always holding your breath. Like, okay, yeah, this is going to be nice for a year, 18 months. Is he actually going to be able to just kind of keep himself focused?
100%. And then is it worth it? Like, is it worth it? Is he a good enough player that you're going to devote all of those resources to try to keep this guy on the straight and narrow? Like, he's a good player, but he's not an all-pro. Like, that's just not who he is. You know what I mean? And so it's like, we're going to devote all these resources to keep this guy out of trouble because why? He can be our 3rd corner. Like, that just doesn't, you know, it's not. And unfortunately, that's what you get with the NFL is like, you're willing to take on more risk the better the player is. Just ask
Lawrence Taylor gets a little bit of a leeway.
Look what we discovered. Once we discovered that Antonio Brown had gone over that line of like once he lost that little half of a step and was no longer worth what in hindsight teams clearly were having like entire, you know, personal security teams keeping him like within the parameters because at one point he was arguably the best wide receiver in the league. Once you're not anymore, you're no longer worth that time and effort to manage. And it goes from there. So, Pat, let's put you on the spot here. What is worth more? Having the chance of ruining the Bills' season, but ruining the draft pick a little bit more, or having the draft pick, you know, because I think if the Patriots don't win these next 2, there's a couple matchups there with Washington and even Arizona that getting back to the number 3 pick is very doable, and even the 2 pick is in play. Where Patriots fans' heads at? Because I wouldn't blame him. Putting myself back in those moments during the drought, I would have flourished at the idea of like, well, if we could ruin the Patriots season, that'd be pretty fun. I might take that.
So
where's your head at? Where do you think?
I think the strength of schedule right now with Washington. Washington has their last 2 games against San Fran and Dallas. Patriots playing the Bills and the Jets, right? And so I think if both teams were to lose out, the Patriots would end up at 3, just strength of schedule wise. if Arizona were to win a game, then they end up at 2, which is great. And that's awesome. And I think being at 2 or 3 would be fantastic. The Patriots right now have clinched a top 9 pick. That means they cannot draft later than 9. If you said to me, you have to draft 9th overall, but you're going to beat the Bills and they're not going to make the playoffs, I would take that deal 1 million times out of 1 million. Well, I mean, not even close. Like, it's just, I'll take the number 9 pick. Sweep the Bills? Are you kidding me? Like, we would win 5 or 6 games and we would have swept the Bills. Like, that would be incredible. You know what I mean? And I would just say, oh, you didn't make the playoffs? Wow, would have really helped if you had beaten the shitty Patriots, but you didn't. So, it would be fantastic, So I don't think it's going to happen. But I would 100% choose that. Yeah.
And obviously, I think the way this defense is playing, and God bless him, can you tell Christian Barmore just to take the day off? Can Barmore just stay home for the
My guy, dude.
He's a wrecking ball. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, there were stretches in that game last Sunday where he looked unblockable. Like, where I get it. Like, I think Denver obviously has been struggling with some of their interior line, but like, he was just unblockable for entire series in that game.
Quinn was gonna have nightmares, man. He's gonna have nightmares with that, man. It was rude, and he's been like that all year. He's had a fantastic year. The stats are finally matching up with what he's been doing all year, because he was always a pretty good pass rusher, but what he's added this year is the run stopping ability. And like, he's a guy to me that like he's eligible to be extended this offseason, and they need to just throw a bag at this man and just keep him around, because he looks awesome out there. And so, defensively, if the Patriots are going to win, they're going to have to win defensively. I mean, they're going to have to, find a way to confuse Josh Allen again and, stop the run like they did last time with James Cook. And Cook had a little success against them, but not a ton. And so they got to get out, try to stop the run, confuse Josh Allen into a few bad mistakes. And if you can do that and turn those mistakes into points, you can win the game. I just don't. Right now, the Bills look like the best team. I mean, the last 3 weeks, Bills look like the best team in football right now. And maybe the Ravens, because what the Ravens have been able to do is incredible, right? But like, I don't know how. And I know it's a divisional matchup, and so like but like, the Bills have to win this game. Like, this is like 100%. They're getting to a point where it's like, if Miami loses, they're playing for the AFC East next weekend, right? And the Patriots can't say, well, we lost to the Patriots, so we didn't, they're going to be more motivated than they've ever have been, I think. And I think it might end up close, but I would just be surprised if the Patriots, were able to go in there and win the game. And maybe, I'd probably be the least surprised with a close game. I would be not very surprised with a Bills blowout either, because I just think that this offense really can't. If you get behind on the Bills, you're screwed, because this offense isn't designed to come from behind. So like, that could be a real problem. But we'll see. We'll see. It should be a fun game and an entertaining game. And hey, listen, best case scenario, the Bills split with the Patriots this year. So like, I'm okay with that.
Coming into the season, you probably would have taken that. All right, let the folks know where they can find your work.
Yeah, so as you said, I am on Pat's Pulpit. I write for Pat's Pulpit. I also have a show, the Pat's Nation Network. You can find that wherever podcasts are as well. I also I'm a TikTok star, math. It's a Mr. Lane Math. I'm not really a TikTok star, but nice. I like to say I'm school famous. All the kids in my school know who I am, but that's about it. But it's fun. I do little math teaching skits and all sorts of stuff. So if you're into math,
I say my daughter might need that. I might need to look that up.
Yeah. So
can you explain Common Core to me? Can you do that?
Yes, I can. We what happened was that we decided some genius said, so like, are you good at math, Greg?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know how like you do math in your head where you're like, okay, 34 plus 97, and then you add the 30 and the 90 together, and you add the 7 and the 4 together, and you combine them, right? Okay, great. You can do that in your head because you learn the way to do math. We just decided to teach kids that way at the beginning, and it just like doesn't. It kind of works, but it also doesn't work. And I hate it, but here we are. So. So yeah,
this is us now. This is what we do now.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We'll talk here again and again.
Yes.
Appreciate your time for tonight.
Of course.
And,
thank you so much. I
a healthy
appreciate
game
it.
this weekend for both teams would be great.
Yeah, honestly, and I'll be honest with you, I talked to my dad about it on Sunday, and we were both saying, like, this might be the Bills' year. Like, you thought last year was the Bills' year because of the awful stuff that happened at the beginning of the year in Buffalo, right, with the shooting. And then you had the DeMar Hamlin thing at the end of the season, and you had the Bills being, in my opinion, the Bills and the Chiefs being the two best teams in the AFC, in my opinion, pretty much all year long. And for them to not be able to come through with it, and you're like, man, but this year is the opposite, where they struggled. They were 6-6, and it's like, that might not even make the playoffs. And now all of a sudden they're catching their stride at the right time. Yeah. And sometimes it's all that matters. Like the Patriots went through things like that sometimes where they just weren't super good. And then all of a sudden they like figured it out. And then once they got confident, started playing well and started playing full team football like Buffalo's been doing, that's what it takes. And then they do say the hottest teams, those are the teams that win because it's only one game, right? And so as much as I don't want the Bills to make the playoffs, I do think that they will, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them make a pretty deep run this year.
So we won't be disappointed to hear that. Hopefully, appreciate it. Make sure you guys check out all Pat's work, and I can't recommend enough. Great follow on Twitter as well. We'll talk to you soon, Pat.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks, Greg.
All right, so it is interesting, kind of flipping the so many years we were in the opposite scene. I mean, everybody remembers the press conference and we're on to Cincinnati. A lot of people don't remember like the context of what that was. It was really similar to those McDermott press conferences after the overtime loss and falling to 6-6 and being in those positions. That's what that moment was. Like people were writing like the Patriots.
They just got blown out.
Yes.
Like they had just gotten blown out. Maybe the worst performance you've seen from a Brady-led team.
Yeah, and it was
when it was really Brady's team, not Willis McGinnis' team and whatever. Like that, it was bad. And you're right.
Yeah, and and then obviously turn around to go on to be a Super Bowl winning season and to be in those positions. Obviously we'll see what the Bills can do with this, but it just goes to show that it's not always pretty. They picked out the moments in the Rams Super Bowl season, where how far down they were when the Buccaneers were 7-6 in their season when they won the Super Bowl. Each of the different spots.
The Eli Manning, both Eli Mannings over Tom Brady. Yeah. I mean, the Pats didn't try week 17. That helped the Giants.
They had to win to make the playoffs. They weren't going to make the playoffs.
And then it comes full circle a month and a half later that you're losing to that team. I think that was the Manningham catch. That was the second one, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. It was how the Flacco run with the Ravens that year.
Right.
Sometimes it often is just who gets hot at the right time and where it's able to go. So as we kind of look through here, there's a couple different things we talked about pre-show with some of the announcements today. I want to give credit. Sal Capaccio did a really good.
I literally have Sal's tweet up here.
It was, and it really laid out the different scenarios really well. And it was exactly where my mind was at. Was like, hey, so we're going to go back a couple days here leading into the Bills game last week and going into the Chargers game. We had the announcement that Jordan Phillips is going to be put on injured reserve. They put him on injured reserve, and oddly, they didn't make a corresponding roster move. They did elevate Leonard Fournette, but that was more to do with Ty Johnson being a scratch and not being healthy for the game. They didn't add anyone to the 53-man roster. So we end that game. We come into this week, and there was a menu of options. They had the practice windows were open for 3 players. They had Kaiir Elam's was open first. He had his 21-day window, and that deadline was coming up today, where they had to make a decision by today. They had Justin Shorter, who they have up until a couple more days here, and then they opened Daquan Jones last week, and he was coming up through this stretch. So there was a bit of a debate. We had Micah Hyde's injury. Did that connect with maybe elevating Kaiir Elam as just another defensive back? We know we've seen some of the guys playing safety. Daquan Jones' practice schedule was ramping up, but we also saw probably the best performance from Poona Ford that we've seen with the Bills so far. Does that give them a little more time to make sure Daquan's all the way back? And then obviously Justin Shorter, not as impactful for those ones. But today we saw the announcement for Kaiir Elam. Elam's been elevated to the 53-man roster. what was your what did that mean to you in the sense of, okay, is that for a role to play? We know we've seen Christian Benford was a little dinged up. We've seen some different moments here. I don't think they're not in season. They're not moving him to safety for Micah Hyde. There's no direct connection there. I won't lie. I was a little surprised. I thought they were going to close it for both Elam and Shorter and be like, hey, we didn't have an injury at your specific position. We opened it up as insurance. So I was a little surprised when I saw Elam activated today. What was your mind when you saw that move?
My first thought was it was next in the chronological order of who could be next. He was next. I didn't think Daquan was close personally. I didn't think he was going to be ready this weekend. And as you mentioned, Puna giving him, we kind of have that buffer now. Just like Leonard was that buffer for Ty, Puna can be that buffer for Daquan. And you don't want to overlook an opponent. I also don't know if you need to rush anyone back for Sunday. Like, as we've talked plenty, Stevenson's out. You're not worried about that.
Yeah.
Fournette, I don't know where the hell that leap came out last week. I haven't seen that since he was a Buckeye. That was insane. But I felt like it was next. I know that's a simplification, but that's how, when I saw the notification on my phone, I went, oh, that's next.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. And it's, obviously he deserves it if he's healthy and is ready to play. Like he is one of the top 4 corners on the team. Like he would be. I think he'd go back to that spot that he's him and Dane Jackson is the outside boundary guy. I think he'll play some on special teams. I don't even think it's a guarantee that he'll be game day active. I think there's
I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't. It wouldn't
that he may get activated but not game day active. And I'm curious to see tomorrow because Daquan Jones was put as the walkthrough as a full participant. Their history has been, that means that's their expectation, is that when they actually practice tomorrow, he'll be a genuine full participant. Now, that doesn't mean that they have to activate him. They can still be working their way back. And like you said, they can be strategic in what they do or don't do versus the Patriots, compared to what they might do for the Miami game. I do obviously fully expect it's a when, not if, Daquan Jones is going to get activated. But I'm curious to see, what do you think? Do you see what the next move is of who would be released or how they would handle Daquan Jones? Or do you think it's, hey, we don't have the obvious name at the moment. Let's see what happens this weekend and deal with it next week when we're ready to activate him. And if not, we'll just make a decision of a Jermaine Ifedi or of a Linval Joseph or of someone that's a vested veteran that you could release, try to pass through waivers, pull back on the practice squad and make practice squad elevations if you want to. There isn't, looking through the roster, there isn't a super clean, like, oh, it's definitely going to be that guy because we've had enough movement in other places.
I truly think that at this point with the injuries that this team has faced, they are playing it week by week. What is the best we can do this week? And it makes sense. Who are our best 45 guys on Sunday to go win us a damn football game? Yeah. I mean, now there are, as you mentioned, like, who can we sneak through waivers? Who can we, that game has to be played. But week 17, are those guys getting claimed? Like, is there someone, because if they're claimed, then they're on the 53, like
guaranteed. Yeah.
You're
we're past the point. You have to keep them through the rest of the season.
Right. So that makes the game easier to play. Yeah. When okay, well then now have fun. Jets, have fun taking them and go find another guy to cut because Aaron Rodgers wants to be part of your team. So I do really think that they're at a spot right now with the if you're also a hockey fan, it's almost going back to thinking when the teams have had to play that weird cap game with the AHL, NHL, and you're literally going day to day on doing paper demotions and call-ups to get through. The Penguins were in this spot for a while. I think that they're at a day-to-day thing right now with how do we win Sunday? And when your playoffs started 3 weeks ago, you need to be in a situation where you're thinking, I don't care about 18 and week 1 of the playoffs. I need to win Sunday. Yeah. And that's where they have to be.
Yeah, and I think they have to approach it that way in looking at, hey, what are all the different scenarios? What are the things that would allow us to, get to just where we need to for the next moment, and being able to kind of cross each bridge as you go to it. We don't really know the extent of each of the other injuries in each of the
Right.
other pieces that have come up. We don't know, how serious is each of the spots of the guys who are on the injury report. We see DeMar Hamlin, we see Micah Hyde, we see Terrell Bernard, AJ Epinesa, Ty Johnson. All those guys are there. Maybe one of them is in a spot where, hey, we're not sure if you're going to make it back. We're going to have to do a an IR stint, and then we can bring you back into the playoffs if we need to. Here is Pops Mafia is asking Jermaine Ifedi. Both we've been incredibly fortunate on the offensive line. We've had some terrible injury luck almost everywhere else, but the offensive line has been incredibly clean, and we've had those same 5 guys there almost every game the entire season. So Alec Anderson and Jermaine Ifedi have just been game day inactives every single week and haven't needed it. And we've just had, obviously we see Ryan Vandermark and they use David Edwards, being able to be there as the David Edwards plays the most as the jumbo lineman, and Ryan Bates is just there as a luxury, not needing to play. So I think adding Jermaine Ifedi and Alec Anderson and having 10 offensive linemen was smart. We just happen to not need to use them. And that's
Greg,
wonderful.
This is some old oak wood right here. I'm gonna knock on this for the Bills.
Yeah. Again, we've had so much other injury, so many other nasty injury like that. I think hopefully we've soaked most of that up.
An all-pro at every level of the defense is pretty hard to overcome.
Yeah, losing your best guy at each layer. So it's now in a spot where, do they cash in one of those luxuries? Like, hey, we think we could get Jermaine Ifedi. Alec Anderson, I think, is more of a risk of getting claimed as a younger guy. But Ifedi's a guy who probably his agent could put it out there to be like, hey, don't claim him. He's not interested. He's going to sign back with the Bills practice squad, and they can elevate him if they need to.
Which absolutely happens.
100%. We just saw a lot of people expected Justin Houston or Jason Pierre-Paul to get claimed, and obviously they went through that setup and didn't because their agent wanted to make sure they could go to the right spot. So they have influence in moments like that to be able to impact it. So, those are some of the names. Linval Joseph is also another one where specifically because it's Daquan Jones in that spot, is that a guy that they could just have as a Leonard Fournette, where the playoffs, there's an unlimited amount of practice squad elevations. They could sign him back in that position. And
it's not like he's done something that makes other teams beg for him to join them.
Correct. I don't mind the idea of Linval Joseph next to Daquan Jones in 8 to 10 specific short yardage snaps.
Right.
But he has certainly shown that, hey, he's not a 30 or 40 snap guy anymore. He just doesn't have that in him. 15 to 20 is pushing it. He still can be very powerful in some moments, but getting Daquan Jones back is going to be incredibly impactful. And certainly I hope the opportunity we saw and what Poona Ford did with his opportunity this past week opens up their eyes. I don't know what wasn't happening in practice or what I saw in the games that he was playing, I thought was better than Tim Settle. I didn't get why it was going back that other direction. I get that there's some versatility with Settle, but I thought Poona Ford looked better than him. So I'm kind of hopeful that that's the direction it goes, is that Daquan Jones gets activated. Poona Ford is the backup one tech, and Linval Joseph is, maybe the release candidate and brought back on the practice squad. But again, some of those other spots, maybe someone needs to go on the IR that we don't know about, or God forbid something happens this weekend where that opens up an injury spot to bring him back. But I do think it's a matter of when, not if, for Daquan Jones. It's just we don't know where that insertion is going to come.
It's absolutely when, in my opinion.
Yeah. So one thing we want to go through here is we are at week 17 of our partnership with our friends over at Leftern. They have been fantastic. I am actually wearing the Christmas present that they sent me. Very gracious. I appreciate Greg and Melissa have been fantastic. I had their world tour shirts, got each of the stops along the back is like a concert tour setup. Is fantastic. They also had the Deal With It America, we're back shirts. If you remember that banner from like the 4th Super Bowl run where fans would hold it up that said Deal With It America, we're back, where nobody wanted them to go to a 4th Super Bowl. So the new design for this week we thought was a really, really cool one. And this week 17 of season 5 of the Leftern Game Day series is out now. This week's print was designed by local artist Ryan Horner and is titled You Are What You Year. This is an amalgamation of all things 2023, from tributes to the Mafia and season moments to landmarks of Buffalo. This paper cut piece represents it all. 26 paper pieces make up one image of a buffalo wearing a football helmet on a snowy turf background. The collage was then scanned in high resolution and became this print. 100 stamped and numbered prints get released each week on the Instagram and Twitter at Leftern Co. So to give them a follow. The website to purchase is www.leftern.co. Grab one before they're gone. Individual print sales this season help support Buffalo Cares, a local nonprofit that helps find homes for abandoned and sheltered animals locally. Please go help support local artists, local businesses, and a local nonprofit doing incredible work. They've been awesome. I know a lot of folks went out there and supported them here at the holidays with all the cool stuff in the event they had leading up to Christmas. So hopefully you had a chance to go out there. This is just another incredible print and fantastic one. I love the idea of the collage pulling together all the other little pieces. You even see the ketchup and mustard spraying up there in the corner, the broken table. All of the different pieces are just a really, really cool idea of pulling together a big collage of all the things that make Buffalo special. And I think it's cool to be able to set it up in that format. So they've been awesome to work with. It's been a real pleasure. So another great job by Ryan and Greg and Melissa pulling together all these incredible artists to do it week after week. This is just another home run in my opinion.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
You know those? What are those Rick Rorschach? What are those tests called? Where like
the Rorschach tests?
Yeah, I'm having one of those weird moments. You know what I see here, Greg? In this image,
What was that?
I see a heart signifying Damar Hamlin.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Like that's what my brain sees.
Well, it's almost like one of those magic eye things where
right.
you kind of have to like cross your eyes and stare, and all of a sudden like something else pops out at you.
Well, you started to explain it, and I went, "Oh shoot, that's a heart, like Damar."
Yeah, that is really cool. It is awesome to see all the different pieces here and what everybody can interpret it as, and I'm sure Ryan will appreciate that as just another possibility to be able to share there. So I've been hinting at my fresh design for the last couple of weeks here, and specifically as they've been building up the run game. And I think I'm going to keep it for one more week, in that I want, not that I want to take a opponent lightly, or not that I want Joe Brady to not put our best foot forward and try to win the game, but I want to keep it close to the vest one more week. I want to see a really dedicated focus on running the ball. I want to see, still the passing game needs to work. We need to do all those things, but I want to keep it as vanilla as possible, because I do think we haven't seen quite as much motion. We haven't seen quite as much play action. But as soon as we get one of those safeties to start to pay attention to James Cook, the potential of giving Josh Allen the weapon of downfield play action shots, where he's been so restrained by the constant cover 2 and the constant high shell. And now if you can just get them to take one more step into the box because they're worried about James Cook, I think it could unleash something really special. And I want to see it, but I'm just trying to put myself in Joe Brady's position. Do I think I need to show all my cards against the Patriots when I know, our playoff started 3 weeks ago, and that we've just got to survive in advance, and Miami is going to be potentially a division championship game on top of, then we need to put together 4 more in the playoffs. I joked our playoff started 9 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. We have 6 more to go. Like, that's it. Like, that's the only, you're going to get eliminated at some point. Any loss eliminates you. You have to have that mindset. So my fresh design is something that I don't think I want them to show this week. I want to wait one more week and keep it keep it close. Don't show those cards. Just play vanilla, pound the rock. Don't show the leak play that I know is coming to Dawson Knox. Don't show the deep shot over top that I know is coming when they get them to bite up on him keeping it on one of those tackle pulls where he goes out as a naked the other way and keeps it and takes a shot downfield. I know those are coming, but I don't want to see it yet against New England.
I had a fresh design moment last night at my in-laws' house watching UNLV versus Kansas. For those that don't know, I covered UB really close while Lance Leipold was here. I consider him a friend at this point of our lives. So I'm watching, and Trevor Maddich broke down the insane stuff UNLV does. And they run a 2 running back offset to the left in pistol, jet sweep to that side. So you end up with 3 guys on the left side of the line, and their quarterback's mobile, UNLV's. So you almost have like a 1995 Nebraska triple option, but with like freak athletes as opposed to big hogs like Nebraska had in 1995. And I'm sitting there rewinding it. Like I looked like John Gruden on the old Clicker show, rewinding it, going, oh, if that was James Cook and Diggs and Shakir on the jet sweep with Josh, sweatpants got tight.
They have so many options. We saw some of the pony sets that they played around with. We saw Fournette and Cook on the field for the same, and they did the same thing for a couple snaps the week before with Ty Johnson and James Cook. We've seen them mess around a little bit more. They went back into some of the 12 personnel pieces. We even saw some 22 with Gilliam. I love it when they go into the jumbo sets with David Edwards, and we've seen I'm just waiting. I know that there's a fat man touchdown coming for me. I know that it's coming. They're going to put David Edwards in motion.
I begged for Hart to get one last year every week. Every week I begged for Hart to get one. The only reason I swore the only reason he was on the roster was to eventually catch a touchdown.
Yeah. Well, you go back a couple years ago when it was Bates and like he ran. I think we went back and looked. He ran 19 pass routes that season when he was the jumbo set guy. And I know they've been keeping some of that stuff close to the vest to be able to run it when they need to. But I don't want to see it yet. I don't want to. We only need to show as much as necessary to survive and advance to another week. You know, we're way past the point of style points. We're way past any playoff committee.
Beating the Chargers by 40 would have been cool, but guess what? Beating the Chargers is beating the Chargers.
Yep. We made it. We survived. We had enough of those games. We've had enough of the punt return against the Jets and the last minute drive for Mac Jones and the missed field goal to a remade field goal against Denver. I don't care how we get it. I don't care. Like I don't need it to be pretty. I don't need it to look special. I just need to be able to survive and continue. A question here, K. Murray asking how many openings on the practice squad right now. So I don't think I saw any releases from it. So as far as I know, I think we're at the 16.
I believe that's true.
I don't think I saw any releases from it. I know Fournette was the most recent formal addition to it, and I don't think I've seen
Sal has all 16 listed on his.
Okay. I know we brought back, we had a couple moves in between there. Most of the guys we've had all season, and it's names you would recognize. We brought back Josh Norman during the season, but Terrell Shavers and Brian Thompson and Greg Mance and Kevin Jarvis and Andy Isabella, Jamarcus Ingram, Richard Garage, like those guys have been on the practice squad all season. We saw some movement. Eli Ankow left and went to Atlanta and came back. I actually thought Ankow might have gotten the call up at one point here, and I'm a little surprised that we haven't seen him. We had the Shane Buechele addition when we lost Matt Barkley, and then he's there as kind of the emergency third quarterback. With the emergency third quarterback rules, I am interested to see if that becomes a thing in the playoff. When we get to the playoffs, do they add him to the 53-man roster and then do something with a Jermaine Ifedi, with a Linval, with a veteran that they know they can get onto the practice squad and just elevate, because the 53-man or the third emergency quarterback rule, which was put in place because of the San Francisco situation last year, only counts if they're on the 53-man roster. And I've had that in the back of my mind all year that like, hey, we don't need to do that now. But once you get to the playoffs, are we going to see every team elevate their third quarterback there to have it as an option? Because you get him as a free, you don't have to activate them on game day. If they're there on the 53-man roster, they are available in that moment if they're on the 53.
Only so that position.
Correct. Only quarterback.
Right. I just want to make sure everybody that was implicit.
Yeah, sorry.
Put it up.
No, it's a good clarification. It's only for the third quarterback, and it cannot be by coach's decision. It has to be because the trainer of the team has declared the other two players out. And if either player can return, they must return to the game. You cannot leave the third emergency quarterback in. It is only for true emergency quarterback situations. But everything I can tell, those final moves, it was Herb Miller, then Josh Norman, then Buechele, then Ankow, then Fournette. Those are the most recent additions. I don't think we have an opening, but there are guys there. We have 2 defensive tackles. You could release Andrew Brown and bring on a guy. Kyron Brown is a guy who is a late addition at corner. We have multiple corners. So there's a couple different guys there that, I think it would probably be one of the corners now looking at it, because I think we have 5 cornerbacks on the practice squad. So you could probably drop whoever you see as the 5th corner and be able to bring somebody else up. That's probably where I would see it if they add somebody from that standpoint. But that's a good question. One other here, RC was asking, is Aaron going to come back from Maine looking like the old Trapper mascot? You never know. He might have like a buckskin cap and grow out a big burly beard. I have texted with him. He does have connection here. You saw his comment earlier. He is able to see the internet on occasion. He said he had to watch the entire game on his phone, but he was able to watch the game, and the feed actually stayed reasonably clean on Peacock. So he got to watch the whole game, but that was it. Like, he couldn't really connect with anything else, and he certainly couldn't upload to do anything there. So there's no telling what he could look like when he comes back, but I have been told he is happy and healthy. The family's doing well, and he will return to us here this weekend.
With the price of beef jerky these days, it's not a bad sponsorship.
Yeah, it's not a bad gig. It's not a bad gig. Another one here, Bo was asking, what's up with Diggs' performance the past few games? Do you think he has some type of injury?
I wouldn't be stunned.
The NFL is a 100% injury rate game.
Yeah.
So everyone's dealing with some stuff. We saw him reach at his neck after that weird first hit on the low screen pass. So obviously I don't know that he's 100% everything. I don't think that's like the reason that we're not producing. I think that other teams' defensive focus is why his statistics haven't been there. But you can still, like, in those clutch third down plays where you have to have a play, Josh goes to him and he's made those plays. Like, he was a huge part of winning that game against the Chargers in 2 huge third down pickups in moments where they had to have it. And that, yeah, the box score doesn't look awesome, but they moved in other ways. The same way, like all the passing offense looked bad when we ran for 267 yards and dominated time of control. So I'm personally not worried about Stefon Diggs and his capability. I hope that they have some counter punches coming so that defense coordinators can't dictate as much of his availability as what it is. But I think this happens with a lot of top receivers where, when you're getting bracketed and things like that, and the right read strategically is to go the other direction. And sometimes they got to get with the quarterback, be like, listen, throw me the ball anyways. I still need the opportunities here. I can still beat this. I think they'll have some of those things in their back pocket.
It's also not the worst that Cook has gone off and Khalil Shakir finally looks like the guy we thought was going to be a improvement from McKenzie. So those things are also nice. And it's not like
Gabe Davis's 1 game a month happened to be this last game.
Right. It's not like Diggs has taken this step back and the offense has gone in the crapper. I guess is what I was getting at. Long way to say that.
Yeah, correct. And it'd be one thing if we weren't winning games, if they weren't putting up any points, that would be a bigger concern. But the fact that it's happening in wins with the solid offensive production, I think it's okay. But yeah, they still need a strategy to be able to move back that direction. Any final thoughts here before we wrap things up for the day?
Am I doing a prediction? Are you gonna put me on that spot? Or are you gonna make me?
I am going to make you do it. I actually am going to have I felt bad not having Aaron on the show, so I wanted to get one of his live reads in here. So I want to say thank you. We had a whole bunch of people take us up on our offer to be able to give One Pass memberships out for Christmas gifts. It was really cool. We worked with a handful of people to kind of surprise them because we wanted them to get the email beforehand. So Eric actually helped send a couple emails on Christmas Day. That was kind of cool to go out there. So that was really cool. But if you're interested in doing that or want to get signed up now and run it all the way through draft season, if you sign up now, it'll take you all the way through most of next season as well. Here's the details on how to do that. Many people ask us the best way to support us here at Cover One, and that is to sign up to become a Cover One Pass member. That contribution helps give us the access to all the data and information we use to create the content that you love.
And I think most importantly, brings you into our community of insiders. It's a great community based on Slack. I know a lot of people don't want to be on social media anymore or be in on those conversations. We bring all of it to you right in our great community of educated fans. And most importantly, you get access to our content creators.
Even better than that, everybody loves merch. You get awesome t-shirts, a cool decal, and a letter from the Cover One team signed directly to you.
All for $60. That gets you the entire season, next year's free agency and draft. $60. Click the link in the description. Cover One Insider. Become one today.
All right. So for Fantastic Producers Notes, which for anybody who hasn't seen, if you go back and look, Chris actually tracks all the predictions for each game, whether they had the Bills covering, what the over-under is. I actually just messaged Pat, and he said that his prediction, he didn't give an actual score when he was on the air. He said that it's going to be a horribly ugly game if the Patriots win. So he said 22-19 New England. So he predicted 22-19 New England, that they win, ruin the Bills season and win by a last second field goal as time goes out. But then it'll be a bunch of ugly field goals, 22-19. And I don't know if that score got me, but it might be pretty close.
Bunch of field goals, like the Ryland dude that just missed a bunch last week.
Yeah. Hey, dude, he hit the 56-yarder in the driving rain for the game winner. So
he made the one.
God bless him. He hit the one that mattered. So for anyone who isn't aware, they have the Bills as a 13-point favorite. I get
Is it up to 13?
It's at 13 points. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care if they cover. I just need them to win. I think they're going to win. I honestly don't know if they're going to cover. I don't know. Maybe they will. I've got it 24-13. It easily could be 27-10. It easily could be 30-13. I think this Patriots defense is good. They are legitimately good. I don't think we're going to put up 40 on them, but I do think that we'll score enough. I think that we can get a couple plays going. I think we can run to the outside. I don't want to run at Christian Barmore. So I've got it 24-13. I don't think it's going to be the most exciting game in the world, but I think that they'll comfortably be in control. I think there'll be a moment in the game where we get nervous, where the Patriots score. Maybe it's, we have a lead and they get it back to 10-13 or 10-14 and make it a little stressful. But I've got the Bills 24-13.
24-13. I think the Bills score more than 24, but I can see that 10-ish point gap, the 27-14. I'll go 27-14. That puts us right on the money there. Because last I looked, it was 12.5. So let me buy the hook. Let me buy the hook. 12.5, 27-13, 27-14.
That's almost the exact Vegas prediction, because I think I've seen
the implied score is close to there.
They floated between like 40 and a half, 41. So they are predicting almost exactly 27-14, 27-13. Like that's right there at the exact predicted score. So your mind is aligned with Vegas, which is normally a pretty accurate spot to be.
That's because in the previous 2 years of my life, I was there once a month. So I just became in tune with that darn city.
So again, I would I just like the Chargers game, would I feel better if this was a 38-7 boat race and we just jump out on them early and it goes there? I will say, similar to the Chargers game, if the game script goes the wrong way, they will hang around all day because Zeke can still run the ball and that defense is still legit. But also similar to the Cowboys game, if we jump out early, it could get ugly and it could get away from them because they cannot pass to catch up. They are not built to block a pass rush that has been pretty successful. Ed Oliver, Leonard Floyd, all the other guys are making hay and consistently being impactful. So this is another game where I won't mind it if New England wins the toss and defers and we get the ball first. I'd love to drive down the field and score, get a quick 3 and out, get it back, and all of a sudden get them on their heels because they're feeling like they're playing catch up. Then it could unravel on them. But I think this is going to be game script dictated, and that if New England hangs around early, it'll probably be a long, stressful day. I still think they'll find a way to win and they'll be able to pull it out. But I'll feel a lot better about it if we just jump out early and make it easy.
Well, as the great American poet Vin Diesel said, it doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Just win. And as a Raiders fan, it's just win, baby.
Just win, baby. Al Davis said it best. Speaking of which, before we wrap up here, there is a realistic chance, not realistic, there is an actual real chance that the Raiders win the AFC West and knock the Chiefs out of the playoffs.
If they go 2-0 and the Chiefs go 0-2, that's what happens.
Like that is the scenario. Yeah. If the Raiders win their last 2 and the Chiefs lose their last 2, both teams are 9-8 and the tiebreakers go to the Raiders.
If you want to talk about drought era Bills feelings, it's me thinking about the Raiders losing to the Bears in week, I believe it was 6, going, really? The Bears? We win? Yeah. I hate saying we. Yeah. Sorry. They win that darn game.
The 3-0 Vikings game.
That game's been Control-Alt-Delete.
Like just scored from your memory.
And what happened was the next week they went out and scored 63, and you just average it out in your head. Oh, they put up 41.5 each game. No big deal.
It's super easy. So it's just unbelievable. Like I was playing around when I did the Greg Thompson Sports Show. I was kind of going through the simulator, playing with it on screen, and like my brain melted for a minute because someone asked me, "Oh, hey, what's the scenario where the Chiefs could actually drop to the 4th seed in the instead of the 3?" And the first like 6 things I tried knocked them out of the playoffs. And I was like, wait a minute, the Chiefs can miss the playoffs? And every time the first 2 times I did it, I had Denver beating the Raiders in week 18. So I had Denver winning it. And then I was like, oh shit, if the Chiefs lose out, week 18, Denver versus Las Vegas is the AFC West championship game. How incredible would that be?
Stidham versus O'Connell for the AFC West.
Yeah. So the Raiders have the Colts and the Broncos, which are both
not impossible.
Like both doable games. Yeah. The Chiefs have the Bengals and the Chargers, and I would say well, of course they're going to win that, but they should have beat the Raiders last week, and they should have beat the Packers in the week they lost, and they should have beat the Broncos. Like they've lost a bunch of games they shouldn't have lost. So, again, I expect the Chiefs to win one or both of those games and put this to bed. But just the fact that we are now going into week 17, and it's possible that the Raiders win that division and knock the Chiefs out is just hysterical.
I don't quote me on this, anybody, so I apologize. But there was a stat I saw. It might have been tweeted by a Raiders person I follow, that in Mahomes' previous 6 years, he has 6 games of 20 or less points. And this year he has 7, or it was the flip the other way around. Yeah. Like in his entire career, he has 7. And this year he already has 6. Like if they didn't get Rashee Rice in the second round, they'd be in trouble.
Well, heck, last week, for those, I know a lot of folks here at Cover One, we use the EPA stat, like expected points added. It's simply kind of a mathematical addition. It's every single play, did you add to or take away from the likelihood of winning? Patrick Mahomes has played 109 games in his career. Last week against the Raiders was the 109th game by EPA in his career. So statistically, by that measure, which is not like a be-all end-all, but is a pretty commonly accepted good barometer of a stat, it was statistically the worst game of Patrick Mahomes' career. And it's just unbelievable to see the things happening right now in Kansas
Well,
City. Their reaction to it.
He being Mahomes. So if you go to nfeloapp.com, and this guy does a great job of tracking, I'll say that again for everyone, nfeloapp.com, and he does all the EPA and all those things. I'm on it right now. If you go to his value versus average starter, if you're a baseball fan, this is kind of like WAR.
Okay.
If you think about it, yeah, if you think about it that way, Josh Allen is first, 3.9 points above average. So
an average quarterback,
4 points above Kirk Cousins starting for your team.
Baker Mayfield. Yeah.
Right. Mahomes is still 2.6, which is still fifth best, but he lost 0.4 from last week, and he's down 2.3 from last year. To say just kind of how bad that, that decline has been this season when Travis Swift is dropping passes and it's finally catching up to them that they don't have everything right now.
And I do think that it does show.
And Matt Nagy. Let me put that out there.
There are limits to, like, hey, a franchise quarterback can make everything look okay.
Right.
I think you saw there were seasons in New England where you saw limitations to that. And I think you're seeing the limitations here. Like, hey, this version of Kelsey and these wide receivers you put,
right.
And honestly, the combination of what they thought they could do with Orlando Brown leaving and swapping it for Jawan Taylor. And
Taylor was their huge offseason expenditure.
Yes, he was supposed to be the franchise left tackle. They figured out they had to move him to right tackle. And the last minute addition of Donovan Smith, who has been just a mess. I think it shows there's a limitation to even Patrick Mahomes is phenomenal. He's still the most accomplished quarterback in history in a player's first 6 years and is on his way to a Hall of Fame career. There's still a limitation on, hey, you still got to give guys talent. You still have to give guys stuff to work with. And he's showing that is a real limitation, even for a guy as phenomenal as what Mahomes is.
Yeah. And Kadarius Toney handing the ball to the other team almost literally is a problem.
Yeah, it's frowned upon. So, well, thank you very much for jumping in with us tonight, Greg. It's always a pleasure. Fantastic job, and it's been great. Excited for Aaron to be back, but it's great to have folks like you here with us at Cover One to be able to jump on and produce such an enjoyable show. So, thank you for your time.
No problem. Anytime.
All right, guys. Thank you. The chat was awesome here tonight. If you can help us out, press that like button on your way out. It really goes a long ways. It's the way nowadays of telling other people that you want to be able to check out the work that we're doing. Big thank you to our awesome producer, Chris Kepner, who's been putting your comments up there all show long. We appreciate all your work. But on behalf of Greg Vorse, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to the Cover One Buffalo podcast, and we